secure, Armstrong.
But how long have you been doing the show?
What is it, 3 years now?
Yeah, if you're not secure by now, you're not going to ever be secure.
Okay. Well, you tell me. I just like to know what's happening.
Logan, I know people will find this surprising. Unless I have a guest, and I don't consider you a guest. I consider you as one of the intellectual business thought leaders in the world. Unless I have a guest, I will read my script. But when I know that you're on, I don't really think about this show until I hear your voice when we're live.
Well, you know what, Armstrong?
That's confidence in you.
That's usually the case. Every once in a while, you surprise me. You bring a guest on, and so I just check.
Logan, I want to ask you.
I never asked you about the topic.
I want to ask you. You know not to, because I don't really have. I have a different question for you though.
What's that question?
What's burning for you today? I want to ask our audience today. This is our burn hour. I'm not asking you to burn off fat. I'm not asking you to burn off baggage. I'm not asking you to burn off loved ones or relatives or friends or people that get on your nerves. I want you to burn off what's irritating, irking you, and you just want to burn it off your skin. You want to get it off your chest. You want to talk to somebody. You want to get some feedback on it. You want to be challenged. And I'm going to start, Logan. Logan, what is it that is burning and eating at you?
Armstrong, you put out a blog this morning, which I found very interesting. We talked about it, and it has to do with why successful black middle class people who have those very strong family values. They believe in education, hard work, going to church, and religious values, and a strong family, and they're successful.
But are you equating traditional values with political values?
It has nothing to do with politics.
Okay, explain that.
This has nothing to do with politics. I'm talking about the values like, you believe that when you have a child, that child should have both a mother and a father. You believe that the mother and father should support that child. They should raise that child. You believe in teaching that child certain values, many of which you learn by going to church and learning about God and just sort of the right thing to do. You learn that when you are going to school, you're expected to study. You are expected to respect the teacher. You're expected to respect education. And finally, you are, as a child, expected to contribute. Whether that is, you wash the dishes, whether you mow the lawn. I don't know, do kids mow the lawn anymore? I don't see that very often.
Unless you're paying them.
When you get to a certain age, you contribute to the rent. And that you work hard, and that you respect your parents, you respect your community, you respect, the people around you. And, these are the kind of values. These have nothing to do with politics, by the way. Nothing to do with politics. I think there's many married liberals as there are married conservatives.
But if you say that about American blacks, can you also say the same thing about American Jews?
I can say, look.
You're stumbling. You're hesitant.
No. I say American Jews are out there. There's no question in my mind. I grew up in a very heavily Jewish community. Went to high school with a lot of Jewish kids and have had Jewish partners and very familiar with the Jewish community. The Jewish community makes no bones about how you work hard, you get a good education, you have a strong family union, you respect your family. There's just
Oh, I see.
no question.
I see what you're saying. This is not about politics. No, it's not about how you vote.
Yeah, this forget
Yes.
how you vote.
Yes.
This is, do you do certain things that make you do you raise your kids right? Do you give them the right values? One of the important things is not just the carrot, but it's also the stick. I mean, for example, I don't know very many kids from my generation who were, if they got into trouble in school, they much rather deal with the teacher, because when you came home and you had to deal with your father, guess what? Your father came down on you harder than the teacher did. You did not embarrass your parents by misbehaving in school. And if you did, you paid for it.
You won't be spared the rod. So is there any other culture that you can point to, maybe at the Irish at the turn of the 19th century, that exhibited the same kind of behavior?
The strengthening of the family?
Yes.
Well, I mean, the Chinese are very, have a very strong family culture.
No. I'm talking about similar to what you said about what I wrote about the black middle
people
class.
Did not.
Yeah.
I'm not aware of where the successful people in the culture. I'm just not aware where the successful people in a culture go around saying that the people who are less successful in the culture should not follow their example. I'm just not aware of it. Now, there may be some. I'm sure your guests will call us up and tell us about some. But, I think that, in business we have something called benchmarking. And what benchmarking says is that as a company, you look at all of your competitors and you say, what are they doing that's better than what we're doing? And you benchmark yourself. And the thing is, you can't kid yourself. You have to say, their product is more efficient, it's cheaper, they get better customer service. You have to say why it's better. And you have to say, okay, if we're going to be competitive, how do we bring ourselves up to the level of our competitor? Okay, and the absolute essential thing is that you cannot lie to yourself. You cannot kid yourself, because the market will not let you lie to yourself. If you bring a product out and it's inferior, or you have a service and it's inferior, your customers will stop buying your product or using your service eventually. Okay, and the same thing in a culture. If you have issues in your culture that need to be raised, that are problems, where, for example, in the black community today, there are issues with education, there are issues with children being born out of wedlock, there are issues of...
But why are so many children born out of wedlock?
Armstrong, I wish I knew the complete answer to that, but I can tell you part of the answer, at least in my judgment. And that is that our society has become much more permissive. In the 1950s and 60s, if a girl became pregnant, I lived in New York at that time, and girls got pregnant in the 50s and 60s. But when she got pregnant, her parents sent her down south. She came back a few months later, and she went back to high school. Or alternatively, she got married. The father pulled out that proverbial shotgun, found the young man, and took him to the church. Those are the two solutions. I did not know any girls in those days, and I'm sure there were girls who had their baby, brought him home, and took care of them. I mean, that just wasn't done in polite society.
But you know what? It's not just that this is happening in the black family. It is becoming pervasive in white families and Hispanic families. It's off the chain compared to what it was 20 or 30 years ago.
Well, you're absolutely right. It's interesting because Pat Moynihan wrote a book about 40 years ago where he described this, and he described it, specifically, with respect to the black family, about children being born out of wedlock.
Logan, just hold that point. Why are families, why are children across the board, why do they have these babies out of wedlock when they know the consequences? Why? Can someone enlighten Logan as to why this is so pervasive? I'm Armstrong Williams. We're streaming live, www.livestream.com/Armstrong Williams.
For more information on the Armstrong Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams,
Yeah, sure.
and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people.
Yeah, I know.
From building wealth to foreign policy. Stay connected with Armstrong Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
Your hair, there's so much fire.
No.
Anderson Brothers Bank,
What can I help you?
a family-owned and operated establishment that blends traditional personal service, local market awareness, and advanced technology to meet the financial needs of its customers.
You wouldn't ignore this.
Visit abbank.com
so why ignore the
or
signs
call
of a stroke?
843-464-6271 to see how they can assist you with your banking
or
needs.
sudden trouble speaking,
Anderson
seeing, or
Brothers
walking.
Bank,
Don't
celebrating
wait to get
75
help.
years of
Call
community banking,
911 right
the way
away,
it should be.
because time
Stability
lost
right in your
is brain
backyard
lost.
since
To
1935.
find out more, visit www.strokeassociation.org
Hello, my name is Ron
or call
Wilson. I'm running as a
1-888-4-STROKE.
Republican for the City
This message
Council
brought to you by the
nationwide.
American Stroke
The
Association
political
and the
arena
Ad
dominated
Council.
by the Democratic Party. I'm seeking office in Ward 7, overwhelmed by unemployment and poverty. For the first time in decades, we have an opportunity to be elected as the people that need the representation the most are now responding to the principles that will uplift them. For more information about my values and to donate, please visit www.ronmoulton.com.
Most Americans simply have never been taught the basics of money management, let alone how to secure their financial future. But there is hope. Financial Education and Literacy Advisors, also known as FELA, does what others don't. FELA teaches financial education. If you'd like more information about providing a financial wellness program for your employees, or a credit-bearing college course in personal finance, or other valuable programs, please visit myfela.com. That's myfela.com, or send an email to info@myfela.com.
Hi, this is Armstrong Williams with an opportunity to own a piece of paradise in Nassau, Bahamas. Spectacular land prices, 8,000 square feet, 20,000 square feet lot, affordable prices, hilltop properties with views of the magnificent sea. Just call 242-677-3120 or 3121 or go to info@rightsidewire.com and leave your information.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
So why this out of wedlock birth? Why so many? Is it because that there is a generation of young people that believe that a family is no longer a mother and father married with children, that a family could mean out of wedlock as long as you have children in the household, one parent, a grandparent, a foster parent, it doesn't matter. I mean, we have this argument about same-sex marriages and children being reared in their home. Is there a larger issue that we're missing as to why so many kids are born in often troubling situations and they lead troubling lives with troubling consequences for our society? When you think about the high crime, the high dropout rate, the disciplinary problems in the classroom, the problems with crime and drugs, is there a larger issue that is going on here? Are we in the era of our time in America where the definition that Logan and I, and many of you that listen to this broadcast, our definition of family is really non-existent, that there's a new definition of family that we have been unwilling to comprehend, accept, or even wrap ourselves around it. Logan?
Well, Armstrong, what's missing from many families is a male. And, there's a popular song about 20, 30 years ago by Harry Chapin.
But the male is not missing when they're having that baby.
Well,
or conceiving that baby.
Hey, listen, the male...
So you're telling me that the man is only...
child's formative years.
So you're telling me the man is only interested in the sex, nothing else? It has no
That's what
connection
I'm
to that
telling you,
child?
Armstrong. There are many men who are just out there, impregnating women without thinking about the consequences.
But how can a man, if that's what you call a man, how can a human being, how can you know that it's your semen that brought about the life of that child? How can you in any way remove yourself from the connection of your offspring, of your DNA? How is that possible? Because you know what, Logan, 40 or 50 years ago, you didn't hear much of that. At least whether you married the woman or not, you would acknowledge your child because that's a part of you, and you don't want someone else influencing raising your child.
Armstrong, I don't understand it. But, when 72% of black children are born out of wedlock, and about 30% of all American women who are under the age of 30 have children outside of wedlock. 50% of those women under 30 have had children under wedlock. We got a problem, and the problem's not just with the women having the children; it's the men who are impregnating them. How can these guys walk away from their children?
Logan, not just walk away with it. There are instances when they're involved with a young woman and she tells the man she's pregnant. They totally abandon them as if they tried to poison them or kill them or cut their neck off.
Armstrong, it seems to me that if you want to make love to a woman, okay, you have to realize that one of the consequences might be a child.
But you know what? They're not making love to a woman. They're not intimate. They're making lust to a woman.
That's right. You're right. You're absolutely right. So, has our permissive society gotten to the point where recreational sex, which is essentially what you're talking about, recreational sex is the norm in our society, and we've totally taken some of the mystique out of sex in terms of what its role is in being a cohesive force in the family. It's now just sort of some kind of recreational activity.
You know what? I don't know, you and I both are history buffs, but has there ever been any time in the period of the history of the world where you've had this unprecedented number of children out of wedlock?
Well, in the English common law, if you lived with a woman for a certain amount of time and you lived as man and wife, you were considered married under the common law. And one of the reasons why they had that historically is because, in the very old days, a lot of people, there wasn't a minister around, the church, was far away, or, but they recognized that they recognized the family unit, even though it may not have been consecrated by the church or approved by the civil authorities. So there is precedent for not being formal marriages, but it's rare. And there may be people who've studied this. And by the way, I'm not an expert on this aspect of history, but I could not point to a period in time where a very large segment of the children were born without fathers being a major present in the child's life. I'm just not aware. Now, if somebody would care to enlighten me as to when that happened and if it was successful, the real question is, was it successful?
I must tell you, I am, we talk about this subject so often, but we're actually talking about it in a different way. I don't think that society has the shame, reinforces what is wrong about the behavior. Alan, you're on the line with Logan Delany. What are your thoughts?
Yes, how are you all doing today?
Just fine.
Hi, Alan.
Okay, on the topic today, I'm going to try to shape this way, so you can minimize spinning out of it. But say that you're in a town and there's one billboard with a restaurant. The common person, when they get hungry, will probably end up at that restaurant. Now, the two of you, y'all aren't common, but the common folk will. So when I say that in terms of audio, video, and print, these are mechanisms used by the controlling, the controlling capitalist, the private sector, that will put images in folk that will drive them to do certain things. And I don't take the weight off, but I do put the weight on that other sector that is controlling them through this imagery. And so, no, there's no love because they don't see it in the imagery. We don't see the goodness in the music videos that's out there. We see what they put in, and the common, not you all, but the common folk take this and they run with it, and that's the problem.
But, I think you're saying something even more serious here. I think the fact that during the days where Logan discussed that the marriages were not consummated, but you still did not see this high number of out-of-wedlock births, I think the advent of the media being able to bring things not just to you so quickly, but also becoming sort of like an advocate for it because it sells, it creates ratings, and they don't care about the consequences. They care about their bottom line. And I think the difference today is the fact that the media is squarely responsible in Hollywood for this out-of-control behavior.
Well, then why can't we turn this same concept that we apparently somewhat agree here and apply it to when we talk politically, and why the people of the lower class are end up in certain situations that they do, because it stems from the same media that is put out there in front of them.
But I think Logan made an earlier point when he was discussing my posting today, is that why do we become apologists for a culture and a behavior that we don't recognize in ourselves and we know in the long run is destructive? Logan, am I correct?
But we're creating that. It's the older population. It's the older populace that is creating that, not the younger generation. They're falling into it. We got to take ownership and responsibility for that. And those who are not doing it, like yourself, should point that out and should handle that from the top down, not from the bottom up.
Alan, I agree 100% with you. Absolutely. People who are successful, people who know what the right thing to do is, who have had success in life should say, hey, these are the things that have made me successful. Okay? One of the things is not having children out of wedlock. But let me just say something about, when I was a kid, and I said to my mother, she said, you can't do something? And I said, well, why not? Joe's doing it. If Joe can do it, why can't I do it? And my mother said, I don't give a damn what Joe does. In my family, you don't do that, okay? Well, today, if you tell your daughter, hey, don't go having random sex with these boys, she's going to say to you, well, look, I see it on television, I see it in the movies, I see it, all my friends in school. Everybody is fighting these trends that the media and society is putting out there, where it's being permissive. So it's really hard as a parent.
And on the other flip side of that, when I put my foot down and say this is what you're going to do or won't do, or have to get a little stern, then we have the other side of the law now limiting me from doing what I need to do necessary to discipline my child. So it's the elders, not the kids. They're falling into the trap.
But the problem,
Alan,
also,
if you spank your child in public, you're going to have social services on your butt.
Yes.
They're going to try to take your child away from you.
But the other problem is you're dealing with kids that they feel that if they're not doing this, they're labeled, they're picked on, they're made jokes of, and so they're so isolated, and so just not to have that feeling of not belonging, they do these things whether it's what they desire to do or not. It's called peer pressure.
But yes, but they don't come out that way. They're grown into that through imagery. I mean, it's clear.
Hey, look, what Alan's saying is the truth.
I don't
is
disagree.
That it's our fault. It is our fault. Okay, we are not doing what our parents did.
Alan, thank you. Our phone lines are open. 1-866-620-6620, 733-5620. Give us a call.
For more information on the Armstrong-Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive,
there's a monster under
view live streams,
there's a monster
and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people.
For a child with
From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong-Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
Fact is, their next asthma attack could be triggered by something as innocent as a teddy.
Join the millions of Americans who pursue one of our country's finest traditions, from hunting to sports shooting. Since 1871, the NRA has grown as a service organization involved in all aspects of shooting sports and is a proud defender of the Bill of Rights. Join today to begin taking advantage of exclusive membership offers and discounts, including up to $25,000 in insurance coverage. Contact the NRA today. Call 1-800-672-3888 or visit nra.org.
monsters go away.
Because
Elder Chicks is an exciting part of the fastest growing segment of the population. Women in their 70s, 80s, and older who are mastering the art of a senior life. We're no longer unseen and unheard. We're providing role models for each other and the baby boomers who are fast approaching retirement. Join our virtual community. Hit www.elderchicks.com on your computer keyboard.
Most Americans simply have never been taught the basics of money management, let alone how to secure their financial future. But there is hope. Financial Education and Literacy Advisors, also known as FELA, does what others don't. FELA teaches financial education. If you'd like more information about providing a financial wellness program for your employees, or a credit-bearing college course in personal finance, or other valuable programs, please visit myfela.com. That's myfela.com, or send an email to info@myfela.com.
To travelers along the road of life who have fallen asleep at the wheel, to the many who woke up in time to avert disaster and get back on the righteous path. For the ones who crashed and survived and now adhere vigilantly to a virtuous and righteous path. Finally, Armstrong-Williams' much-anticipated new book, Reawakening Virtues, gives his insights into these daily challenges and much more. Reawakening Virtues is available in bookstores and at Amazon.com.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong-Williams.
You know, Logan, we have been doing this for about 3 years, and sometimes what we don't do enough of is talk about the root of the problem. And what we're discussing today and the points that Alan raised are the roots of the problems. And he seems to think that we focus too much on what these out-of-control kids and adolescents are doing, and we don't focus on the real power and influence that we have where we are to make a difference. Because I'm sure you and I both can point to situations within our staffs and operation, our friendship, and even our adult friends where because of our moral compass, our strong navigation system, that because of our example and our willingness to speak up when someone says something that we know clearly is unethical about things that they do, that we sometimes have to even remind good people that sometimes they can get off track. And so if it happens to adults, I mean, imagine our children, because oftentimes they're scared, they live in fear, they have many uncertainties, and so they're just acting out what they say in the media, by peer pressure. And I'm just wondering, do we do enough to empower and just sort of hang in there to help them see that the path they're on is very destructive and they need to get off quickly?
Well, Armstrong, I don't think we do. I mean, I'm amazed, for example, that the church is not done its part, and I hope Reverend Spry calls up and tells me I'm wrong, but I don't think the church does its part today in helping these children develop a strong moral compass. The church is that institution that has always been a pillar of the community. And if somebody doesn't go to church, it was still had a major influence on the community's behavior, even for those people that didn't go to church. And there's certain things that the church promoted, at least when I was young, that they don't do now. One is that, you got married before you had sex. Well, that may be like kind of quaint and old-fashioned, and I'm certainly not advocating that that is the appropriate for everybody. But I am saying that quaint old thing sort of set limits, and we knew what was right and what was wrong. Okay, is the church out there? What does the church do when a young lady and a young man, a young lady gets pregnant, and do they go to the young man and say, "Young man, you've got a responsibility for this young lady and the child"?
You know what? Listen to what Joe, who is always on our live stream, which is www.livestream.com/Armstrong Williams. And you know what? I have never really focused on this part. And this person has really inspired a column. Let me just read what he said very briefly. The church hasn't done a whole lot since the government gave them a tax deduction. And then he put in parenthesis, hush money. Wow.
Well,
I never looked at it like that, Logan.
Well, one of the things that Joe is right about is that the church historically was responsible for the welfare of the community, and I mean welfare in the general sense. But as the government has taken on more and more welfare responsibilities, the church has really sort of walked away from its own welfare obligations. Let me give you a couple of examples. Let's start with education. I mean, the church was a major back in the beginning of the 19th century. The church was the major source of education in America. Basic primary education. If you look at our great universities, almost all of them started out as church-sponsored institutions. But the church has walked away from education, with the exception of the Catholic Church and a very few other exceptions. Look at people who were hungry. The church, had welfare programs and soup kitchens, and they were always there. They knew who in their community needed help. Okay, and they helped. If you look at our hospitals were originally started by the church and funded by the church. You look at most of our major cities, and a lot of the major hospitals have former affiliations with the church. We go through counseling. Today, if you have a problem with your spouse, who do you go see? You don't go see the minister anymore. You go see, some social worker or a shrink. I mean, you look at all this and you say, well, what's left with the church now? I mean, what are they doing for the community? And I don't mean this as a put down of the church, because I think that Joe was right in that the government started doing some of these activities and took up all the responsibility in terms of education, welfare. I mean, the church doesn't have to do welfare anymore. And if you read the Bible and you look at what Jesus was talking about, he expected you to help your neighbor. But hey, you don't need to help your neighbor today because the welfare department will help them. Okay? So the government has taken on all these responsibilities, and maybe he's right. Maybe, this payoff money is a way for, politicians to have control over the people rather than, and take that control away from the church, or not control, but influence away from the church.
Alan, I know you're part of this discussion, and I appreciate your patience, and so you're part of the show today. Think about Joel's comment that the church hasn't done a whole lot since the government gave them a tax deduction, which he calls hush money. And he said they won't stand for anything that may be considered political. And he used as an examples abortion, the crime, the gay marriage. How do you respond? Because I think what he's saying something here. I had to pause.
Well, I look at it like this. Just like there's not enough of you all to get to those people in control of the media to try to correct them, there's not enough good churches. I'm talking about true churches to get to the populace, to get to those children out there, to get them on the right track. They're just not enough. Now, we have to understand there are churches out there that just profit off of sin, and they're just there to make the money. So the more you go out there and sin and do stupid stuff, the more you're going to be in there on Sunday asking for forgiveness. So, but I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about the true churches in the community that's trying to do is just not enough.
I have to tell you, I think we've really put our fingers on a problem. I never could see the church as a part of the problem. I could only see it as one of the few solutions that we have. But I never realized and thought about how much the church is compromised when this government dangled this tax-exempt status. Remember what the government loves to do when they feel a church, any institution that they give this status to, they love to dangle, you're going to lose your tax-exempt status.
Well, and look, remember, there were churches that Christ was not in agreement with. And what was as before is today. And there are churches that fit those descriptions. Just read those verses in the Bible, and you'll find those churches and seeing what they're doing. I'm going to continue to listen to the show, but I'm about to get off.
Thank you so much. Logan, that tax-exempt status is hush money.
It is. And think about it, there's tax-exempt status for educational institutions. And what about for public broadcasting?
Man, I'm taking notes myself on the show today.
Okay.
Listen, this is just amazing to me that
Let me tell you, why does public broadcasting need a tax exemption when there are thousands, if not tens of thousands, of other radio stations and cable stations out there that pay tax? Why do we have to give them a special exemption? And by the way, what's their politics?
Listen, I'm not really that concerned about public television. I don't really want to get into that because public television to me is not the church. The public television is not a place where you can go where you expect it to condemn wrong, embrace people even when they're wrong, but you always stand on what is righteous, what is just, what is fair. And
what about the schools, Armstrong?
Well,
what about the schools? I mean, when we went to school, okay, you said a prayer. You said the Lord's Prayer. We went to assembly. Okay, you do that today, they'll send you to jail. If you thank God in school, I mean, when Tebow gets down on his knees and prays, the media makes a big deal out of it, like there's something wrong with this guy. And then when high school students mimic him and get down to their knees and thank God because they caught a football, you have certain school boards and certain school districts saying, wait, kids can't do that. They're telling the kids they can't get down on their knees and thank God when they catch a football.
And where are the churches?
That's a good question. The Catholic Church, you have to hand it to the Catholic Church for standing up and saying, our Catholic charities are an important part of our religious mission.
Hold your point. Hold your horses, Logan. Our phone lines are open. We like to get your input. 733-5620, 1-866-620-6620. We're streaming live, www.livestream.com/Armstrong Williams.
For more information on the Armstrong Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
7,000 high school students drop out every school day.
Need a new
If you
fundraiser?
stack their desks
Do you
one
need to
atop
work
the
out of your
other,
home
it's a
or
pile more than
part-time?
17,000
Are you a small
feet high.
business that can use an
That's
additional revenue
12
stream?
Empire State
Then
Buildings.
you need Yellow Llama.
But what's truly scary
You need
is that
affordable web
another
services
stack
or
is
tools
going
to
up
enhance
tomorrow.
your existing business. Are you
We
a
can't
graphic
keep
artist
students
who
in
wants
school.
to create a revenue
Visit
stream with your art
boostup.org and
but
take
not
the
get
first
ripped
step.
off?
Brought to you
Then
by the
go
U.S.
to
Army and the Ad Council.
www.yellowllama.com.
Anderson Brothers Bank, a family-owned and operated establishment that blends traditional personal service, local market awareness, and advanced technology to meet the financial needs of its customers. Visit abbank.com or call 843-464-6271 to see how they can assist you with your banking needs. Anderson Brothers Bank, celebrating 75 years of community banking, the way it should be. Stability right in your backyard since 1933.
Most Americans simply have never been taught the basics of money management, let alone how to secure their financial future. But there is hope. Financial Education and Literacy Advisors, also known as FELA, does what others don't. FELA teaches financial education. If you'd like more information about providing a financial wellness program for your employees, or a credit-bearing college course in personal finance, or other valuable programs, please visit myfela.com. That's myfela.com, or send an email to info@myfela.com.
Hi, this is Armstrong Williams with an opportunity to own a piece of paradise in Nassau, Bahamas. Spectacular land prices, 8,000 square feet, 20,000 square feet lot, affordable prices, hilltop properties with views of the magnificent sea. Just call 242-677-3120 or 3121 or go to info@rightsidewire.com and leave your information.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
Wow, this is a really wonderful conversation today. Let's go to Maurice. Maurice, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. I was listening to some of the comments being made, and some of the information is just not accurate. First of all, when you make the statement about prayer not being in school, the church didn't take prayer out of school. But I do have an issue with the church not standing up and allowing it to come out of school, though. Secondly, everything that puts church by its name is not a church, which is one of the reasons why we had a problem. You can't call yourself a church if you're not a missionary church. A church is mission-based. That means a church is there to help the community. If the church isn't helping the community, isn't mission-based, then because they got church on the name, that doesn't make it a church. Now, this gentleman has made some comments about the Catholic do this, and the Baptist is one of the most, I'm in South Carolina. We own a college here called Morris College. It's been around for a long time. It's totally owned and supported by the Baptist family in South Carolina. A lot of graduates have went on to do great things in this world that came out of Morris College. And that school is completely, totally supported by the Baptists. Also, Benedict College is supported and given assistance by the Baptist church family. So, I think that you need to look at, if a church says it's a church, that doesn't mean it's a church.
Let me just say this to you, Maurice, and just know how much we appreciate your calling. I have such reverence for the church because it's where I grew up and it's where I continue to draw strength.
I'm a pastor, so I do too.
And I want you to say this. We're not having this conversation to condemn the church, because we realize that church does much good. But what I'm saying is that in the shows that we've broadcast in the past, someone called in here today, and someone on our live stream mentioned the fact that the churches have not been the same since their tax exempt status, and they put in parenthesis hush money. It's something I not thought about, and I think you're saying this. I think we all are saying the same things, and you're saying just because an institution calls themselves a church doesn't mean they're a church. And I think where this conversation is going is, it appears as this is a total indictment of all churches. And if that is what you're perceiving, I apologize. That is not what we meant. But what I'm trying to say to you, I do find it rare for me, whether I'm in my church, whether I'm listening to the mega churches on Sundays, it is so rare for me to hear ministers talk about abortion, the crime, the gay marriage. I just don't hear it. And I didn't really think about it and process it until what the person on the live stream said. And I said, wait a minute, it's like a light went off. So I'm agonizing and searching for answers whether or not the churches have really abandoned and caused much of this ripple in society because they've compromised.
Well, I agree with you on that. I agree with you. I think some churches, and I get accused. I get my finger pointed at me a lot here in South Carolina because I'm one of those preachers. I'm Baptist, but if I don't talk to my congregation about sex, if I don't talk to them about abortion, about homosexuality, if I don't address it in the church, then where will it be addressed at? Where will they get the correct information on what God's view is on these topics if I don't do it? And if I sit back with my hands folded because I'm getting something from the government, refuse to talk about these subjects, now am I letting my congregation down, but I'm not doing what God has called me to do. I'm not afraid to. Wait a minute, let me finish. I'm not afraid to discuss the issue of homosexuality, whatever is in the church. But you got to realize a lot of churches have been hurt by the economic situation that the government is in. You mentioned earlier about missions and church not doing things for us helping the community like they should have and doing soup kitchens and doing this and doing that. But did you realize that, especially in the South, a lot of the churches here are small churches and were textile community-based churches. And when you got a textile community-based church and the whole industry is gone, where are your members supposed to come give you the money that you need to continue that mission work?
Well, a listener who does not want to call in did ask Yolanda to pass on to me that they wanted us to acknowledge that some churches do not have the resources to implement the programs necessary in the community these days. So I think that is what you're also saying. Logan, you wanted to ask something of the pastor?
I wanted to ask Maurice. Maurice, 70% of African-American children are born out of wedlock. How do you deal with that in your congregation?
How do I deal with that?
Yeah.
I preach the word. The word says that you should not do it. Sex before marriage is wrong and it's illegal, but it doesn't stop it because 70% of African Americans are born out of wedlock. Well, then I guarantee you at least 60% of whites are born out of wedlock because they're both doing the same thing because now they're mixed. So the same thing is happening because you got black and white parents doing the same thing. So you can't put it.
Let's take the race.
Logan, let me say this. Let's not inject race into this because it's about sin, it's about righteousness, it's about behavior, it's about right and wrong.
Right. So how do you deal with conveying to the young men in your congregation, the young ladies in your congregation, that you don't have children out of wedlock?
My young men meet with me and all the men in my church the first and third Monday of each month. Our young men, our older men meet together and we deal with issues that involving young men. We talk about our young men with their pants stacking. We talk about using condoms. We're talking about fighting sex. We talk about what the word says about sex and what you should not do. But because the word says you should not do it doesn't mean it's not going to be done. And if the word says don't do it, and I'm a nurse also, I've been a nurse almost 30 years, I know there's still being done. My job is to tell you that if you're going to do it, despite what the word says, do it safely. So as a men's ministry, we meet, we talk about all issues involving our young men, so that our young men, see, one of the problems with the Baptist church, I agree with you that you did say, is that we don't do what the Catholic Church do. We don't start out teaching what needs to be taught, so that when they get certain ages, they have to meet certain criteria. Before you go to this group, you have to know this much. Before you go here, you have to know this much. And you should be living this way, living that way, or doing this. But that doesn't change folks as they are teenagers and adolescents. You may teach it and preach it and put it in their head. But once they get out on their own and they're adults, they make their own decisions. But I've learned after all my years of working in the church and my years of nursing that if you put it there and you place it there as a child, even though they may stray from it as an adult, they eventually come back to what is right, and they would guide their children what those right principles are.
Let me get Tony. We're going to keep the pastor on the line. We're so honored to have him because he's truly a voice of reason. Tony in Columbia, what would you like to add?
Hello?
Yes, sir. Go ahead. Thank you for calling.
Hello?
Yes, Tony. We're listening to you, man.
Oh, okay. No, well, first, I was going to talk about, the fact that the church has its place in doing things. But I think your guest there, Logan, went off again, popping off about, young African-Americans and out of wedlock, and it's a problem and everything else. And I agree it's a problem. But that's not a problem that the church created per se. And if Logan wants to be true to himself and look at what's going on around the country and in Europe, where you have huge populations of Caucasians, they're having the same problem too. It's not as prevalent as it is in the African American community, but it's getting there. So I mean, there's all these little. Anytime there's some kind of problem in the African American community or in the country as a whole, we get singled out each time. Problems universal. You go to any country in the world, it's getting there and it's getting worse.
Tony,
and the church can preach and preach and preach. If you have a system or a society that preaches civil liberties just like America does, you're going to have a group of people that decide, hey, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and damn the consequences. You can't blame the church for that.
Tony, that's a very good point. Let me just say this to the pastor as we come to the close of our daily show. And again, I'm just appreciative that the Spirit moved you to call in. What can we all do? And I don't care about race. I don't care about culture. I don't care about socioeconomic background. This is an issue that is impacting all of us. What can we do as human beings and working together to at least slow this problem down or save those that can be saved?
The thing that we have to do is this. If I'm going to teach,
Pastor, turn your radio down, please. Turn it off.
If I'm going to teach my young men what God expects them to do, and I expect all the men that are in my congregation to be a part of that team that we're teaching them with, the problem that causes so much conflict and so much issue and turning away from doing the right thing is when we get our groups, our young men together, and we teach them, but we're not living what we teach them before them. If I'm going to teach my young men the right way that they should be doing, the right way they should treat a young lady, that they should open the door for them, because we believe, we teach chivalry is not dead and will never die. That's part of you as a young man. You should treat young ladies as a young lady, because you should treat each lady as if it was your sister or your mother. But if I'm teaching you that and showing you that, but you see me slapping a woman, or cursing a woman out, then how can what I teach you be effective? Because you is going in one ear out the other, because they're going to say you're doing one thing and living something else.
Pastor, we must have you call back again. We have to have more shows like this where we use our voices to empower people and help them find the true way to that thing that we call the light. Thank you, Logan Delany. Thank you all of you for being a part of the broadcast today.
For more information on the Armstrong Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
Join the millions of Americans who pursue one of our country's finest traditions, from hunting to sport shooting. Since 1871, the NRA has grown as a service organization involved in all aspects of shooting sports and is a proud defender of the Bill of Rights. Join today to begin taking advantage of exclusive membership offers and discounts, including up to $25,000 in insurance coverage. Contact the NRA today. Call 1-800-672-3888 or visit nra.org.
Hello, my name is Ron Moulton. I'm running as a Republican for the City Council and Nation's Capital, a political arena dominated by the Democratic Party. I'm seeking office in Ward 7, overwhelmed by unemployment.